Hello and welcome back to English in Fluency, the place where we come together to unlock the power of language and the potential within ourselves. I am your host, Alex, and I am absolutely thrilled that you are here with me right now. Whether you are sitting comfortably in your favorite chair, riding the bus to work, or taking a brisk walk outside to clear your mind, thank you for giving me this moment. Thank you for choosing to spend this time improving yourself. Because that decision is the first step toward something great. Today's episode is a little bit special. It is for anyone who has ever listened to a native English speaker and felt completely lost, like they were hearing a completely different language. It is for anyone who has ever thought, I am just too old to train my ear to hear this, or my brain doesn't learn as fast as it used to. If that quiet voice has ever whispered in your ear, telling you that you can't do it, this episode is dedicated to you. Because here is the truth, a truth that I want you to really take in. Your age is not a barrier. It is not a weakness that stops you from learning. In fact, your age is your strength. It means you have lived, you have experienced the world, you have faced challenges, and you are still here, still curious, and still reaching for a better version of yourself. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to celebrate. In this episode, we are going to talk about how you can train your ear for natural English, understanding more with less effort, and why adults like you are actually some of the best learners on the planet. We will dive into the science of how your brain works, and how you can use that science to your advantage. If you are learning English right now, you are the proof that growth has no expiration date. So, I want you to get comfortable, maybe take a deep breath. Open your mind to new possibilities, and let's begin this journey together. We are going to take it one word, one sound, and one idea at a time. Because your journey is not over. In many ways, it is just getting started. Let's start by talking about something that almost every learner faces, and that is the moment of doubt. Have you ever wanted to understand a movie without subtitles, or perhaps join in a conversation between native speakers? But then you stopped yourself? You felt the interest. Maybe you even felt a spark of excitement. But then something inside you said, "No, not yet. I'm not ready." It happens more often than you think. It is not really about being too busy or having too little time. Those are just excuses we tell ourselves to feel better. The real reason often lives much deeper inside our minds. It lives in our fears. Let's take a closer look at why we stop ourselves, especially when it comes to listening to a new language. One of the biggest reasons is self-doubt. That quiet, nagging voice in your head that whispers, "You're not good enough at this," or "You will never be able to hear those fast sounds." Maybe you have told yourself, "Other people are naturally talented," or "My brain is too old to catch these new words." Self-doubt is very sneaky. It does not shout at you. It whispers softly. It pretends to protect you from the embarrassment of not understanding, but really, it is stopping you from growing. Another common barrier is the fear of failure. And honestly, that fear makes a lot of sense. Think about children. When they are learning, they are allowed to fail. In fact, we expect them to make mistakes. A child falls down 100 times before they can walk, and we cheer for them. A child says a word incorrectly, and we smile and correct them gently. No one thinks twice about it. But as adults, we often feel like we need to act like we know everything. We feel pressure to be perfect. The idea of listening to something, not understanding it, and maybe looking confused in front of others feels scary. We ask ourselves, what if someone laughs? What if I look foolish? Think about this for a moment. Have you ever wanted to join a conversation but stayed silent because you were afraid you might misinterpret what was said? You are not alone. Many adults avoid listening practice because they are afraid of feeling slow. I knew a woman named Clara who was in her 50s. She desperately wanted to learn pottery, to shape clay into beautiful bowls and cups with her hands. But she never signed up for a class. Why? Because she was embarrassed to be the only beginner in the room. She thought everyone else would be young artists with years of experience. She was afraid of being the slowest one, the one who asked the simplest questions. It wasn't her age that stopped her. It wasn't her hands. It was fear. Fear of being seen as behind. And then there is perfectionism. That strong desire to understand every single word before you move on. It sounds like a good thing, right? Wanting to understand everything completely? But perfectionism can actually be a huge obstacle. When you feel like you must understand 100% of what you hear, you stop enjoying the process. When you believe that if you miss a word, you have failed, you stop trying. When your goal is perfection, even a small moment of confusion feels like a total defeat. Now, let me ask you this. Where do these thoughts come from? Were you born thinking you weren't good at languages? Or did these ideas grow over time? Maybe after a difficult class in school, or a comment from a teacher years ago. The truth is, many of our internal barriers come from past moments where we felt judged or compared to someone else. Maybe you were told that learning a language is for kids, or that you don't have an ear for accents. And now, years later, those old words still affect how you see yourself. But here is the good news. Your beliefs about learning are not fixed. You can change them. You can build a new mindset, one that supports growth instead of fear. In fact, mindset is often more important than your age, your talent, or even your intelligence. Two people can listen to the same podcast. One believes, I can train my ear, and the other believes, I will never get this. Their results will be completely different. So, what is a growth mindset? It is the belief that your abilities can improve over time with effort, practice, and patience. It doesn't mean that listening to English will suddenly become easy overnight. It just means that progress is possible. It means that if you don't understand a sentence today, you might understand it next week if you keep practicing. And when you believe that, you start to relax. You allow yourself to be a beginner. You stop waiting to understand everything perfectly and start enjoying the sounds of the language. Remember, the only people who never make mistakes are the ones who never try. Not understanding everything is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you are challenging yourself. It is a sign that you are listening to real, natural English, not the slow, simplified English of a textbook. I always tell my listeners, fluent speakers are not people who understand every word instantly. They are people who don't panic when they miss something. They are people who didn't quit when it got difficult. So, the next time you feel like saying, I can't do this, try asking yourself a different question. What if I could understand more if I just gave myself permission to not be perfect? You see, the biggest wall is not outside of you. It is not your age, your schedule, or your memory. The biggest wall is in your mind. And once you break that wall, you will realize there is a whole world of English waiting for you. Stay with me, because in this next part, we are going to talk about the science behind listening and learning in adulthood, and why your brain is actually stronger and more flexible than you might think. Have you ever heard the old expression, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks"? It is one of those sayings that people use when they believe it is too late to learn. The idea is that after a certain age, your brain just stops changing. You get stuck in your ways. But modern science tells us something very different. In fact, we now know that the adult brain is still very capable of learning new things, even new sounds and new patterns in language. There is even a scientific name for this. It is called neuroplasticity. That word might sound a bit complicated, like something from a medical textbook, but the concept is actually quite simple. It means that your brain can change and adapt no matter how old you are. Just like your muscles get stronger when you lift weights or go for a run, your brain can become stronger when you exercise it with listening practice. Think of it like this. Your brain is not a statue made of stone. It is a living, breathing forest. It is always growing and adjusting. When you learn to recognize a new sound in English, like the difference between ship and sheep, or when you learn to understand a fast phrase like gonna or wanna, your brain starts building new connections. These are called neural pathways. You can imagine them like little roads inside your brain that carry information. The more you listen to English, the stronger and wider these roads become. It is very similar to walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you try to walk through, it is slow and difficult. You have to push the grass aside. The path is not clear. But if you keep walking the same way every day, eventually the grass flattens down. The path becomes clear and easy to walk on. That is exactly what happens in your brain when you listen to English repeatedly. It is not instant. It takes time, but it works at any age. This is the secret to training your ear. You are literally physically changing the structure of your brain. Of course, learning as an adult can feel different than learning as a child. Children may seem to pick up sounds faster, but this is often because they are surrounded by the language all day at school. They also don't have the same fears that adults do. They aren't worried about sounding silly if they repeat a word wrong. Adults, on the other hand, often compare themselves to others. We judge our progress harshly, but that doesn't mean adults can't learn. In fact, adults have some clear advantages. You have more life experience, you have stronger focus, and you have a deeper motivation. You know why you want to learn English. Maybe it is for your career, maybe for travel, or maybe to connect with family members. That purpose is a powerful fuel. Let me share something interesting with you. In studies on brain activity, scientists have looked at adults in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s who started learning new skills. One famous example involved people learning to juggle. Yes, juggling. After just a few weeks of practice, brain scans showed new activity in areas connected to movement and focus. That is neuroplasticity in action. It proves that the brain continues to respond and grow even decades after we leave school. Now, that doesn't mean listening practice is always easy. Just like going to the gym, using your ears to decode a foreign language can be tiring at first. You might feel frustrated. You might want to turn off the podcast because it feels too fast. But that struggle is not failure. It is just your brain doing a workout. Every time you push through the confusion and keep listening, your mental muscles get stronger. Let's go back to the metaphor of the brain as a muscle. If you have ever gone to the gym after a long break, you know that your muscles feel sore the next day. That soreness is a sign that you exercised. It is a sign of growth. The same thing happens with your brain when you listen to challenging English. You might feel tired or mentally exhausted after 10 or 15 minutes. But if you keep going, you build mental stamina. You start to feel more confident. You start to recognize words without even thinking about it. Here is another thing to keep in mind. Learning is not a race. You don't have to understand as fast as someone else. Progress is personal. One person might be great at understanding news reports, but struggle with casual slang. Another person might understand movies perfectly, but find it hard to hear a phone conversation. That is okay. There is no perfect listener. There is just consistent effort. So the next time you hear someone say, "I'm too old for this," or if you catch yourself thinking it, remember this. Your brain does not know your age. It only knows what you ask it to do. If you give it the task of listening to English every day, it will adapt. It will grow. That is not magic. That is science. And honestly, that is kind of exciting, isn't it? It means your brain is not stuck. It means your story is still being written. It means you are capable of understanding more than you thought possible, not just because you are smart, but because you are human, and humans are built to learn. In the next part of our journey together, I want to share some real-life stories of people who started training their ears and learning new things later in life. These stories might remind you of yourself, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from science or theory, but from the experiences of real people who said, "Why not me? Why not now?" So stay with me and get ready to be inspired by what is possible when you simply refuse to give up. Part 2. Let me tell you a few stories. These are not stories of movie stars or famous geniuses. These are stories of everyday people, just like you and me, who decided that they were not done learning yet. They decided to say yes to training their ears and their minds, no matter their age. And by doing so, they changed not just what they could do, but how they saw themselves. The first story is about a man named Robert. Robert was 55 years old. He had worked in a bank for 30 years. His life was quiet, organized, and predictable. But Robert had a secret dream. He loved cooking, but he found it difficult to follow recipes from famous international chefs because many of the videos and tutorials were in English. He would watch the pictures, but he couldn't understand the instructions. He felt like he was missing half the recipe. One day, he decided he had had enough. He told himself, "I want to understand these chefs. I want to know exactly what spice they are adding." So, he started watching cooking videos in English every single evening. At first, it was incredibly hard. The chefs spoke fast. They used words like sauté, simmer, and glaze that Robert had never heard. He felt like giving up after the first week. He thought, "I am just a banker. I am not a chef, and I am certainly not a language student." But he remembered the concept of small steps. He didn't try to understand the whole video. He just tried to understand one ingredient at a time. He would listen to a sentence, pause it, write it down, and look it up. 6 months later, something amazing happened. He was watching a video of a British chef making a roast chicken. and he realized he wasn't translating in his head anymore. He was just understanding. He heard the chef say, "Season generously with salt and pepper," and his hands moved to the salt shaker automatically. His brain had made the connection. He had trained his ear to the rhythm of cooking instructions. Now, Robert hosts dinner parties for his friends where he cooks complex international dishes and explains the recipes in English. All of this began at age 55 with one small decision to stop saying "I can't" and start saying "I will try." Now, let me tell you about a woman named Sarah. Sarah is 68 years old. She lives in a small town, and for most of her life, she believed that learning new technology was for young people. She thought her brain was too old to handle computers and the internet. But when her grandchildren moved to another country, she felt a deep sadness. She wanted to see them. She wanted to talk to them. But she didn't know how to use the video calling apps. They were all in English. The buttons, the settings, the instructions, everything was a foreign language to her, both technologically and linguistically. She felt fear, but she also felt love. That love was stronger than the fear. Sarah asked her grandson to send her a list of instructions. She started with the basics. Press the green button. Slide to unlock. She treated these English phrases like music. She repeated them out loud. Accept call. Decline call. Mute microphone. It was funny at first. She talked to her tablet like it was a person. But slowly, she began to hear the patterns. She realized that cancel and delete often appeared when she wanted to go back. She trained her ear to recognize the warning sounds and the success sounds of the apps. Last month, she called her grandson. She answered the video call with a big smile on her face. She said, "Hello, I can hear you perfectly." The joy in that moment was not just about seeing his face. It was about the knowledge that she had learned something new. She had broken the idea that she was too old. She proved to herself that she could navigate the modern world in English. Now, she even listens to English podcasts about gardening while she tends to her flowers. She combines her love for nature with her love for learning. Can you imagine? At nearly 70, she is more connected to the world than she was in her 40s. And finally, there is the story of a man named Jin. Jin is 62 years old. He lives in a busy city in Asia. For years, he wanted to travel to Europe to see the historic castles and museums he had read about in books. But he was terrified. He didn't speak English. He thought, if I get lost, how will I ask for help? If I go to a restaurant, how will I order food? The fear of being in a foreign country without understanding the language kept him home. But one day, he looked in the mirror and didn't like the fear he saw. He said, "Jin, you have worked hard your whole life. You deserve to see the world." So, he started a strict routine. Every morning, he listened to English travel podcasts. He didn't just listen passively. He practiced what I call active listening. He would close his eyes and imagine he was at the airport. He would listen to the dialogues and say the responses out loud. "Where is the gate? How much is the ticket? I would like a coffee, please." He practiced for a year. There were days when he thought his brain was full, when he thought he would never remember the words for hotel or train station. But he kept going. 2 months ago, he finally took his trip. He sent me a message when he landed. He said, "Alex, I am standing in the airport in London. A woman asked me for directions, and I understood her, and I helped her. He wasn't just a tourist anymore. He was a participant. He was a communicator. These stories are not about magic tricks or special talents. They are about one important choice: the choice to try, the choice to be brave, to train your ear and your mind, even when it is uncomfortable at first. And what is beautiful is that each of these people found something more than just a skill. Robert found creativity. Sarah found connection. Jin found freedom. They found a new part of themselves. So I want to ask you, what would your life look like if you said yes to training your ear again? Would you feel more confident when you turn on the TV? Would you feel more comfortable when you meet an English speaker? Maybe you have been thinking about improving your listening for a long time, but part of you thinks it is too late. But what if it is not? What if your best years of learning haven't passed? What if they are just beginning? When we look at why adults learn differently, we see some amazing advantages. People often talk about children being the best learners, and it is true that children are like sponges. But adults learn differently, and that difference is a superpower. First, adults bring context. You already know how the world works. You don't need to learn what a restaurant is or what a train is. You just need to learn the English word for it. You have a framework in your mind that you can hang new words on. This makes learning faster and deeper. Another strength many adult learners have is discipline. As a child, you might study only because a teacher tells you to. But as an adult, you choose to press play. You choose to listen. That decision makes a big difference. You are self-directed. You control the volume, the speed, and the topic. Because it is your choice, you often care more about the result. This is called intrinsic motivation. It is the motivation that comes from inside you. You are not learning because you have to take a test. You are learning because you want to grow, you want to understand, and you want to connect with the world. When motivation comes from inside, it is much more powerful than any external pressure. And let's not forget about focus. Adults are generally better at focusing for short periods of time than children are. You can sit down for 20 minutes and give your full attention to a listening exercise. That focused practice is incredibly effective for training your ear. However, adults also face specific challenges. We often feel that we have less time. We have jobs, families, and responsibilities. We might feel tired at the end of the day. We might feel embarrassed to make mistakes. But these are not reasons to stop. In fact, these challenges make your success even more meaningful. When you understand a fast conversation, despite being tired or busy, it is not just luck. It is proof of your effort and your strength. Think about all the things you already know how to do. Things you didn't know when you were a teenager. Maybe you have learned how to manage a team, how to fix a car, how to care for a sick parent, or how to balance a budget. All of those things required learning. You didn't know how to do them at first. You figured it out. That is proof that you can learn. You have learned before, and you can do it again. So, if you are working on your English listening right now, remember this. You already have the tools. Your age is not a problem. It is your advantage. You bring focus, life experience, and a strong reason to keep going. Let me ask you a question to think about. What strengths do you already have that could help you listen better today? Maybe you are a patient person. That patience will help you when you don't understand a word immediately. Maybe you are good at puzzles. That skill will help you piece together the meaning of a sentence from the words you do know. Whatever it is, use it. Your learning journey does not have to look like a child's. It is yours, and you are ready for it. Now, let's talk about some common obstacles that might be stopping you from making progress with your listening. We have touched on them before, but let's go deeper. The truth is, even if we know we can learn, we don't always do it. Why not? The answer is often emotional. 3 big obstacles show up again and again: self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear. Let's tackle self-doubt first. This is that voice that says, "I'm not smart enough," or "Everyone else understands this, but me." It can appear when you are listening to a podcast and you get lost after 2 sentences. It makes you feel like an outsider. But here is the secret. Everyone has doubts. Even people who seem fluent have moments where they don't understand something, especially if there is background noise or a strong accent. Doubt is just a feeling. It is not a fact. You can feel doubt and still keep listening. Next is perfectionism. This is the belief that you must understand every single word. If you miss one, you feel like a failure. Let me tell you something very important. Even native speakers do not hear every word in every conversation. We rely on context. We guess. If you are walking down a busy street and someone asks you, "Do you have the time?" you might not hear the word time. You might just hear, "Do you have the—" and you look at your watch because you understand the situation. That is what we need to do in English. We need to let go of the need for perfection. Progress is the goal, not perfection. There is a saying in English, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good." This means that if you wait until you understand perfectly, you will never use your English. But if you are okay with understanding good enough, you will start communicating. And that is where real growth happens. And then there is fear. Fear of failure. Fear of looking silly. This is the biggest obstacle. Have you ever avoided talking to someone because you were afraid you wouldn't understand their reply? Be honest with yourself. Maybe you didn't join an online conversation group because you thought your listening wasn't fast enough. These fears are real, but they don't have to control you. Here is something that might surprise you. Most people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. If you ask someone to repeat themselves, they don't think, "Wow, this person is bad at English." They just think, "Oh, I need to speak a bit more clearly," and they repeat it. People generally want to help you understand, and the people who might laugh or judge, they are not worth your worry. What matters is your effort. So, instead of letting fear stop you, try to feel the fear and do it anyway. Listen to that difficult podcast. Watch that movie without subtitles. Just try. That is how you train your ear. Not by being perfect, but by being brave. So, if you have been waiting to improve your listening, ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? And what could my life look like if I decided to try anyway? You are not too old, and you are not too late. You are simply standing at the start of a new adventure. Let's move on to one of the most powerful tools for learning English, and for life in general. This tool is consistency. Many people think that to improve their listening, they need to study for hours every day. They think they need to move to an English-speaking country or listen to English for 8 hours a day. But that is not true. In fact, trying to do too much too soon often leads to burnout. You get tired, you get overwhelmed, and you quit. The secret is not intensity. The secret is consistency. Small steps taken every day. There is a famous expression in English, slow and steady wins the race. It means that doing a little bit consistently is better than doing a lot all at once and then stopping. Think of your listening skills like a savings account. If you put a small amount of money into the bank every day, over time, you become rich. But if you put a huge amount in once and then never put money in again, you don't build wealth. Learning works the same way. It is not about doing everything today. It is about doing something today. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you listen to English for just 15 minutes a day. That is the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee or ride the bus to work. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But over 1 year, 15 minutes a day adds up to over 90 hours of English listening. That is 90 hours of training your ear. 90 hours of letting your brain get used to the rhythm and sounds of the language. That is huge. Or think about it this way. Maybe you learn just one new phrase from a podcast every day. It's raining cats and dogs, or piece of cake. Over a year, that is 365 new phrases. That is enough to completely change the way you speak and understand. The important thing is to show up for yourself. You need to be consistent. That means listening even when you are tired, even when you are busy, even when you don't feel like it. Consistency also builds confidence. When you listen every day, even for a short time, you begin to trust yourself. You feel more in control of your learning. You start to notice progress. Maybe last week you couldn't understand the weather report, but this week you caught the words sunny and cloudy. That small victory gives you motivation. It is a circle. You listen a little, you understand a little more, you feel good, so you want to listen more. So ask yourself, what is one small thing you could do today? Maybe it is listening to this podcast while you wash the dishes. Maybe it is listening to an English song and reading the lyrics once. Maybe it is watching a YouTube video about a hobby you have, like cooking or fixing cars, but in English. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to happen today, and then tomorrow, and the day after that. I want you to think about this question. What small habit could you start today that would make a big difference a year from now? It could be as simple as listening to the news in English for 5 minutes every morning while you brush your teeth. You don't have to do everything. Just start with one thing. Because the truth is, talent is helpful, but it is not what creates success. What creates success is showing up again and again. The people who become fluent are not necessarily the smartest people. They are the most consistent people. They are the ones who kept pressing play when others stopped. So take a deep breath. Look at your schedule. Find 15 minutes and commit to it. That is how real change begins. That is how you train your ear to understand natural English with less effort. We have talked about the obstacles, the science, and the power of consistency. Now, let's talk about the most important tool you have, even more important than your age, your time, or your past experience. And that is your mindset. Your mindset is the lens through which you see the world. It is the voice inside your head that interprets everything that happens to you. It is the voice that says, "I can do this," or "It's too hard for me." Many people stop themselves from improving their English, not because their ears can't hear the sounds, but because their mindset tells them they can't learn. They believe they are too old, that their brain is full, or that they just don't have the talent. But that is simply not true. As we discussed, your brain can learn at any age. It is not your age that stops you. It is the belief that you are stuck. That belief can become a wall. But if you break that wall, if you change your mindset, you can do amazing things. One key word for a good mindset is open-minded. Being open-minded means being ready to accept new ways of doing things. It means not saying, "I've always done it this way," or "English is too confusing." Instead, it means saying, "I wonder why they say it that way," or "I'm curious about this sound." When you are open-minded, you become a detective. You look for clues in the language. You listen for the music of English, the way the voice goes up at the end of a question, or the way words blend together. You don't fight the language. You explore it. Another important word is curiosity. Curious people are always asking questions. They don't let the fear of looking stupid stop them. If they don't understand a word, they look it up or they guess from the context. They enjoy the process of discovering something new. When you keep your curiosity alive, you will always find a reason to keep listening. You will want to know what happens next in the story. You will want to know what the podcaster's opinion is. Curiosity makes learning fun instead of a chore. But let's be honest, learning a language isn't always fun. Sometimes it is frustrating. Sometimes you listen to the same sentence 10 times and you still don't get it. This is where resilience becomes important. Resilience means the ability to keep going even when things are tough. It is like a strong tree in a storm. The wind blows, the rain falls, but the tree bends and doesn't break. When you are resilient, you don't see a mistake as a disaster. You see it as information. You don't see confusion as a sign to quit. You see it as a sign that you are challenging yourself. Many adult learners are very hard on themselves. They compare their behind-the-scenes struggles with everyone else's highlight reel. They see someone speaking fluently on YouTube and think, "Why can't I do that?" But let me ask you, are you judging yourself more harshly than anyone else ever would? Most people are impressed that you are learning another language. They are not laughing at your mistakes. They are admiring your effort. We need to stop being our own worst enemy. We need to become our own best friend. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love. Be kind. Be patient. Say, "It's okay that I didn't understand that. I'll try again tomorrow." When you see yourself as a learner, someone who is growing, real progress becomes possible. Think about children. They don't worry about grammar rules. They just repeat what they hear. They make mistakes. They laugh. And they try again. That is why they learn so fast. As adults, we become too serious. We want to be perfect before we even start. But perfection is not the goal. Connection is the goal. Understanding is the goal. So, how can you start thinking like a learner again? First, let go of the fear of sounding silly. Allow yourself to be a beginner. Second, stay curious. Ask questions. Explore the language. Third, practice resilience. When your brain feels tired, take a break. But don't quit. Just come back to it later. You have a choice every day. You can say, "I'm too old to learn this." Or you can say, "I'm excited to grow." You can say, "I'm not good at listening." Or you can say, "I'm training my ear every day." That choice makes all the difference. Remember, it is not the young brain that learns best. It is the open brain, the curious brain, the resilient brain. If you keep your mindset in the right place, age will never stop you. In fact, with age comes patience and wisdom, which are incredibly useful for learning a complex skill like English. So, today, I want you to make a decision. Decide to believe in your ability to grow. Decide to believe that you can understand natural English. Decide that you are not behind in your journey. You are exactly where you need to be. You are here, with me, right now, taking the time to improve. That is something to be proud of. As we come to the end of this episode, I want to leave you with a specific strategy to help you train your ear. This is something you can do immediately after listening to this. It is called the shadowing technique, and it is fantastic for listening and speaking. But wait, don't worry. You don't have to speak out loud if you are in a public place. You can do it in your head. The idea is simple. When you listen to a sentence in English, don't just think about the meaning. Think about the music of the sentence. Try to repeat it in your mind exactly as the speaker said it. Copy the speed. Copy the pauses. Copy the emotion. For example, if I say, "I'm really looking forward to the weekend," don't just think, "He likes the weekend." Think about the sounds. "I'm really looking forward to the weekend." Notice how looking forward becomes lookin' forward. Notice how the words flow together. By doing this, you are training your brain to recognize the patterns of natural speech. You are training your ear to hear the details, not just the general idea. You can do this with this podcast. You can do it with movies. You can do it with songs. It is a powerful way to turn passive listening into active training. It might feel difficult at first, but that is okay. That is how you know it is working. You are stretching your brain. You are building those neural pathways we talked about earlier. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Another tip is to vary what you listen to. Don't just listen to podcasts made for learners. Listen to things made for native speakers too. Listen to the news. Listen to comedians. Listen to interviews. Even if you don't understand everything, you are getting used to the speed and the variety of voices in the real world. Think of it like training for a sport. If you only practice slow walking, you won't be ready for a race. You need to run sometimes. You need to challenge yourself. It is the same with English. Expose your ear to different accents: American, British, Australian, Canadian. They all sound different, and the more you hear them, the more flexible your ear becomes. You will start to understand that it doesn't matter if someone says car or car. Your brain will learn to recognize the word in both forms. I also want to encourage you to embrace the pause. When you are listening to something difficult, it is okay to pause. It is okay to rewind. But try not to pause too often. Try to let the audio play for a few minutes without stopping. Let your brain get used to the flow. It is like swimming in a river. If you stop and touch the bottom every 5 seconds, you don't really get the feeling of the current. But if you let yourself float for a while, you start to move with the water. You start to feel the rhythm. Trust your brain. It is smarter than you think. It is picking up patterns even when you are not consciously aware of them. Have you ever had the experience where you learn a new word, and then suddenly you hear that word everywhere? That is your brain. It was hearing it all along, but now that you know it, your brain highlights it. By listening consistently, you are giving your brain more data to work with. You are feeding it the sounds it needs to start recognizing words automatically. As we finish, I want you to remember the main message of today. It is never too late to train your ear. No matter your age, your past, or your current level, if you are ready to begin, you are on the right path. Understanding natural English doesn't require magic. It doesn't require you to be a genius. It just requires a decision to try. It requires the decision to listen a little bit every day. It requires the courage to be imperfect. You have heard today that your mindset matters more than your age. You have learned that your brain is designed to change and grow. You have heard stories of people just like you who started late and succeeded anyway. And most of all, I hope you have realized that you are not alone. We are all in this together. Every fluent speaker you meet started exactly where you are right now. They didn't understand everything at first. They felt confused. They felt slow. But they kept going. And that is why they are fluent now. Now, I would like to ask you to do one last thing for me. Pause for a moment. Reflect on what we have discussed. Ask yourself, what have I been putting off because I thought it was too hard? What small step can I take today to train my ear? Maybe it is subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications so you never miss an episode. Maybe it is listening to one English song today and really paying attention to the lyrics. Maybe it is having a short conversation with someone, or just talking to yourself in the mirror for 2 minutes. Whatever it is, take that step. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for the new year. Do it today. You don't have to change everything in your life instantly. You just have to move forward. Even slow steps take you somewhere. And over time, you will look back and see how far you have traveled. You will see that the mountain that looked so big from the bottom is actually a climb you are capable of making. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I know there are a million things competing for your attention, and I am truly honored that you chose to spend this time with English in Fluency. It tells me that you are serious about your growth. It tells me that you are ready to understand more. If this episode helped you, or if it made you feel more confident, please share it with a friend who might need to hear this message too. Leave a comment below and tell me what your biggest challenge with listening is. I would love to read it. And remember, you are not behind. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be. Keep your ears open. Stay curious. Be kind to yourself. And most of all, keep listening. I am Alex, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.